Every movie worth watching, every book worth reading, every show worth binging has one thing in common. One element that ties the story together, that draws us into the story that's being told. And that's conflict. A struggle between two opposing forces that the main character must overcome. You see, a story with no conflict is no story at all. Every good story has conflict. In fact, most stories don't just have conflict in it, they center around conflict. Conflict is what drives the story forward. It's what makes us sit on the edge of our seats because we want to know what's going to happen next. Every good story has conflict. I mean, think about your favorite story, your favorite movie or TV show or book. Think about that story. What's the conflict that it centers around? What's the conflict that's driving the main character forward? Maybe you love the superhero movies, the good versus the evil. Batman has to defeat Joker. There's conflict in that relationship, right? Maybe you like the disaster movies where this Mother Nature is wreaking havoc and the main characters has to figure out how to survive and to get their family through it. The conflict is in the storm. Maybe you like the movies where there's inner demons that are providing this conflict where the character has to wrestle with and go through to get through into whatever's next. There's conflict in that. Or maybe you like the dystopian type stories where the character has to overcome the society that's bringing evil down on its people and they have to face this conflict to lead the society into something that's better, something that's just. I don't know what your favorite story is, but what I do know is that your favorite story likely has conflict. It likely centers around conflict because every good story has conflict. Here's my point. We know what makes a movie worth watching, a book worth reading, a TV show worth binging. We know what makes a story good. Yet, we often fail to apply that same principle to our life and our faith. We want an easy life. We don't want anything or anyone opposing us. We want things comfortable. We want our paths straight. But the problem is, for followers of Jesus, he never promised us an easy life. He never promised us we'd have everything we want. He never promised us that we'd be comfortable. In fact, he promised us quite the opposite. He said, if you follow me, you're going to have trials. You're going to have difficulties. He said, they hated me, therefore they're going to hate you. He said, if you want to follow me, you need to pick up your cross to do so. That's not an easy life. That's a difficult life. You see, Jesus isn't offering you something easy, something comfortable. What he's offering you is something meaningful. He's offering to tell a good story in and through you, and good stories require conflict. That's what he promised his followers. He said, there will be conflict, but take heart, for I have overcome. See, Jesus isn't offering you an easy life, but he is offering you a meaningful life. We recognize that good stories are told in conflict, but we often fail to see the conflict in our lives as part of the story that God is telling. We think God is unjust and unfair rather than a masterful storyteller. Maybe perhaps the conflict you are facing isn't God being unjust and unfair. Maybe he's telling an incredible story through you because good stories are told in conflict. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that God is causing the conflict just to have a good story. I'm not saying he's causing bad things to happen in your life just so you can say, yep, got a good story. That's not what I'm saying. You see, we live in a broken and fallen world where sometimes bad things just happen. Conflict is right around the corner. That was certainly true for Jesus. He didn't do anything to deserve what happened to him, and yet he faced conflict like you and I never face. You see, sometimes in life, bad things happen, and it's not that God is causing those bad things to happen, but what God is doing is he's redeeming them. He's taking the conflict that you're facing and turning it into something that's incredible, a beautiful story, a story that will not only change your life, but will change the lives around you. People, when they see the story that God has told through your life, they will see what God can do and they will be encouraged. And I know this because I've experienced this. I've seen God take the bad things in my life, the conflict in my life, and tell an incredible story that not only changes me, but changes others. And I've seen him do that in so many other lives. And so what I want to challenge you to do is to view the conflict in your life differently. Maybe the conflict you're facing, God can use to turn into an incredible and meaningful story. Maybe he can take the bad and turn it into something good. That's what he's in the business of doing. God is a masterful storyteller, and he wants to tell an incredible story through you. It won't be an easy story, but it will be a meaningful story. And for God to tell that story through us, what we need to do is we need to start seeing conflict in our life not as God being unjust, but conflict as part of the story that God is telling. And if we can do that, not only will we be changed, but the people around us will see the goodness and the love of God as he weaves a beautiful and incredible story through our lives. And we really believe that here. We really believe that God has a story to tell through you. And we want to help you embrace and step into that story. And part of that means that we don't look at conflict as something to be avoided, but we look at it as part of our story, that even the worst and most difficult things can be redeemed by God for something good. So, step into the story that God has for you. We'll see you next time.